Right, we are live. I am Wes Hagen, and I am the winemaker for J. Wilkes Wines here in the beautiful Santa Maria Valley of Santa Barbara, California. And welcome to Day Drinking with Wes Hagen. What Eddie is in so fast. What's day drinking? Well, we get together every night at 5 o'clock, except Sundays. Saturday, we just hang out. There's no agenda. And then Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, we have a deep look at some wine education subject. And Tuesdays and Thursdays, we just taste a wine, and the shows are a little bit shorter, except today. Today is all about pushing ourselves, and I'll be explaining exactly why I'm saying that. But before we start, Eddie's here, Tom's here, Tom O'Higgins, man, Bernardo O'Higgins. It's day drinking, so before the rest of the folks get here, let's get it on. I've had enough gin and tonics for a little while. So, and Michelle's in the house. This is a Redbreast 12, which is an Irish whiskey that I purchased for my wife's favorite holiday, which is St. Patrick's Day. And obviously St. Patrick's Day was a little lackluster this year. That was the second full day that we were on lockdown. So cheers. May you be in heaven 5 minutes before the devil knows you're dead. That makes my voice feel better. So today was awesome. Last year when I was diagnosed with late onset adult type 1 insulin dependent diabetes, I was about 165 pounds. And one reason I knew that something was wrong with me medically is that I went from 165 pounds down to about my lowest was about 130 or 129. Weight was falling off me. I was drinking 3 gallons of water a day. I went to my doctor. He sent me to an endocrinologist. My A1HC was over 14, which is a serious problem. I was in diabetic ketoacidosis. My blood sugar was in the 300s and 400s consistently. So I was skinny, and I made the decision back that I was going to gain some weight. So I gained a little weight. I got up to about 150, and currently I'm a little bit less than that. And then I told my wife that when I was perfectly fit and skinny, that I would commit to a workout regimen where I could build a little bit of muscle back on my slight frame. So today I got a personal trainer who also happens to be the producer of this show, as we like to call her, producer Chanda, my beautiful, beautiful wife, of almost 20 years, by the way. We'll have our 20th anniversary this year, so that's exciting. We just passed our 22nd anniversary of our first date, so that was just a couple weeks ago. So, and Bob, I did get your message, and we are going to try to update. I just talked to my people, and I have now been tasked with trying to stack 2 weeks of planning on all of these. And we also came up with a cool idea. Why not just offer a mixed case, half case, whatever, of the 6 wines that we're going to taste any given week? And then you can order it 2 weeks ahead of time. It shows up, and then you've got the bottles all ready to go. If you want 2 bottles of each, you have an extra bottle to play around with. So that would seem to work out pretty well. Back to and Teresa, welcome back. And again, as I will say, Zin Man's in the house, and Josh is in the house, and John is over here. So glad to have you guys here. Again, the picture is always a little bit better. My skin looks a little more, like I've been out in the sun in the last 3 years, over at J. Wilkes Wines SB. So if you feel like going over there, sometimes I knock this phone over. That's a laptop. It's not going to go anywhere. And I'm going to turn. Ooh, this is an anticipatory set. I'm putting this was upside down, drying out. Now it looks beautiful and clean. By the way, if you need to clean your decanter, I pulled my decanter out tonight because we're going to talk about decantation and the effect of aerating wine for quality and the way that it changes the flavor of these wines. I pulled this, which is my favorite decanter, which you'll hear again a little bit later. This is a Riedel decanter. I believe it's like a Syrah decanter. Like, really, does it matter what wine? Like, so I'm going to put Barbera in this tonight, and I might get struck with lightning. It's all about putting it together. Yes, I agree, Christy. We should probably meet in Vegas or in Kansas City. That's pretty magnanimous of me. I'm a San Francisco 49ers fan, and a pretty big fan at that. Although I haven't reached the level of fandom in the NFL where I hate teams. Not a fan of the Seattle Supersonics. Basically, I almost called them the S-Birds. The Seahawks. Not a big fan of the Rams. I've been calling them the Lambs since I was 7 years old. So, but I do love the city of Kansas City. We could all meet at Joe's for a Big Z sandwich and a pint of Tank 7. I'll bring some crazy wines. Oh, there's so many good restaurants in Kansas City. Where we'll probably meet is a place called Affair, which is a German restaurant. That's unbelievable. There's also this beer hall in St. Louis that I went to. It can hold like 800 people, and it had probably the best schnitzel I've ever had. It was like veal schnitzel. I guess that would be Wiener Schnitzel. The real Wiener Schnitzel. I guess that means Vienna Schnitzel. This was veal schnitzel, kind of like, and they'd fried it, and it almost made a bowl, and then like filled the bowl with gravy. Hello, Missouri. Between their barbecue and their schnitzel and their beer and their people and my boy Curtis Reese, Super Hawks. Nah, we don't. Super Hawks. The Seahawks. Yeah, I remember back when I was a kid, the Seahawks sucked so bad. When I went up and visited my friends up in Seattle, there were bumper stickers that say, for the person who left 13 children in the Superdome, could you please get them? They're beating the Seahawks. So I do like Pete Carroll. I like his attitude. I like some of the players. I'm not a fan of Clowney, who seems to like to hurt people and not get in trouble for it. One thing I love about the Niners right now is just their bonhomie, that their locker room attitude. Everyone seems to love each other, and you see Kittle and Garoppolo. First of all, Garoppolo is a beautiful man. I'm perfectly straight, but I'm happy to say he is a handsome, handsome man. And I wish he had a little more presence in the pocket and he had bigger legs. But hey, we're gonna have a good time next year. But we're not here to talk about football. I am done with football. I guarantee. I start moving my mouth, stuff starts happening. Oh, I love it. Yeah, Pete Carroll, I have to say, he is the consummate players coach. I do have a lot of SC connections. I thought it was pretty SE, SHITTY, that Pete Carroll left as soon as he didn't have an opportunity to win anything significant he screwed up. You could argue he screwed up the program at SC and then just took off and took a cozy job up in Seattle. But even though I do not like, Russell Wilson seems to be just stand-up guy. I don't hate teams. I just hate them the day that we play them. So did I say I was done with football? I am done with football. It's what happens when I take a shot of Irish whiskey before we start. Excellent. Excellent. Hey, like I said, I don't hate, but you know what? Seattle, oh God, I said I was going to stop talking. Okay, well, we're on our free time. We got 5 minutes. Seattle had 8 chances on goal, goal to go to beat us and to basically get the bye this year. And 8 chances against our defense. No. Yeah, you got within a couple inches, but I don't think there's a darn person who's not a Seattle fan that would say that was a touchdown. I have no problem loving Seattle. And in fact, if Seattle was playing a number of teams, I would probably like to see them win because I'd like to have good competitive teams in the NFC West. Okay. Yeah, no doubt. No, he seems, Russell Wilson, even though he's aging, he just seems like got so much verve. I love that. Randy, welcome. And Francine is in the hairs. Love to have all you guys here. And John's here. Michelle's on the other side. Joseph Benson is in the house. And Joseph and his wonderful and beautiful wife and amazing daughter, who's this she 11? She's an amazing little comedian. She tells jokes every time we come over here. Yes, I'm about to admit something that will probably make me seem very geeky, but I still do have a small Dungeons & Dragons group that meets once in a while in person. We haven't met in a while. I have been into Dungeons & Dragons since 1975, 1976, and I have been a dungeon master ever since. I am a geek, and I was a geek back when being a geek didn't mean you made more money at Microsoft. It meant that you stayed in when everyone else went out, and in 7th and 8th grade, I would probably be happier rolling dice to kill an orc than basically, going to a dance and trying to kiss a girl. Although very luckily, I was in choir, and I got to kiss a couple girls in choir, which was lovely for my 7th grade attitude. I'm just going to be spilling my guts tonight, because if you weren't here at the very beginning of the show, we were drinking Irish whiskey. So this should be fun. And Mark is here, Colleen, Cade, and Mark in the house. Cade, good to see you. The McPhillips, some of my best friends, and also known as Wes's Hotel when he's anywhere in Southern California. Sierra Madre rocks, even in the summer when it's 102 degrees, as long as the air conditioning is working and the pool is there. Boy, do I love me some Sierra Madre. It also means that I can drive 10 minutes down the road and go play disc golf at the world's first basket disc golf course at Oak Grove Park on the border of La Cañada, Flint Ridge, and Pasadena, in the shadow of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, where I grew up, went to high school, and I remember going to the JPL open house every year under the influence of various substances to see what was happening in the space program. And that's as far as I can take that. Find me, basically offline, and I'll tell you some damn good stories about how cool JPL can be. Okay, so we've got Beth in the house, and choir and kissing. Yes, I was in Glee Club before. Trust me, when I was in Glee Club, it was a social problem. I caught a lot of crap. Check it out. Not only was I in Glee Club, my dad was my principal for 2 years of my high school career. But my dad was so darn cool, he opened a smoking area in the middle of La Cañada High School a couple years before I came to go to school there. So his point was, we know high school kids are going to smoke. We'd rather have them smoke right in the middle of the campus so we can watch them so they don't go off campus, because when they go off campus, it's not just going to be cigarettes. So my dad took a pretty liberal attitude about that. I think we always enjoyed it. It's nice not to miss a class just to get a cigarette off campus. So I have not smoked since I was 30 years old. Hopefully I haven't done enough lung damage that if I get the COVID, that I won't be okay. I do have a very, very small amount of a dry cough, and I've always kind of had it since I was a kid, just because I was a smoker, and I probably have done a little damage to my lungs. So kids out there, Cade, don't smoke. Mark, Cheryl, don't smoke as much as you can. Love that, love that. Live there too. You lived in Pasadena, La Cañada? Wonderful, Christy, I didn't know that. Maybe and Brett Varner's in the house again, another one of my colleagues, and James or Jim Arnett is in the house as well. We are at 5 o'clock, ladies and gentlemen. It is day drinking time, and as a result, I would ask you guys to lift your glass, have a sip, and let's get to it. We got a lot to go into today. It's a Tuesday, which normally means a slightly shorter show, but I'll tell you what. I got some work tonight. I've got a lot of notes and a lot of things to share with you. Here's my anticipatory set. If you're not an educator, an anticipatory set is the equivalent of a really good teacher. Like, you come into the class and there's a map, or the projector screen is down, and they lift up the screen and boom, you see all of the stuff that you're going to learn today. So here's your anticipatory set. We're going to talk about Kent's Red. Kent's Red is a blend of Barbera, and if you were expecting bourbon barrel Cabernet tonight, I apologize. About an hour and a half after I went through my intense workout with my new physical trainer, my wife Chanda, we had this conversation. Hey, I read something on Reddit. It was funny. Someone asked Reddit, hey, if prisoners get out of prison jacked up, ripped, why aren't you going to come out of this situation significantly healthier and more muscular than you went in? And I told my wife, and she's like, yeah, why aren't you? I'm like, oh no, I'm just sharing it to you because it was kind of funny. She's like, no. You said it, you're going to do it. So now 2 to 3 times a week, my wife is putting me through about 30 different exercises, 3 sets of each. If you didn't know, my wife is one of the greatest coaches for working out if you want to do it right. We've had a lot of problem in the past because she tells me what I'm doing wrong, and I get a little uppity because I can be narcissistic at bad times. So I promised her that I would take her advice and I would pretend as if I was paying her $100 an hour. Today I worked out for about maybe an hour and a half, and she wrecked me. I don't think I'm going to be able to walk tomorrow. So my goal now is not to let someone in prison end up being more healthy when they get out than when I get out on the other side of this. So my goal is to put on 2 to 3 pounds of muscle a month until we finish this. So we'll see what happens. Let's open some wine. Let's get to drinking. This is the Kent's Red. So this is 90% Barbera, 10% Lagrein. We took a lot of time last week talking about Lagrein, or was it Monday? Maybe, was it yesterday? Yeah, no, it was yesterday we talked about Lagrein. So you guys know everything about Lagrein. Everything I know about Lagrein, you guys know about Lagrein. So today we're going to taste this wine, talk about it, and I'm going to bust out a little bit of information about Barbera. Barbera is a very important grape, over 60,000 acres in the world. And of that 60,000 acres, 50,000 acres of Barbera is in Italy. It's grown up in the Langhe region, where there are basically 3 holy trinity of grapes, which is Nebbiolo, which is probably given the most respect, and then somewhere between Dolcetto and Barbera are the other 2 grapes that are grown in that region. One of my greatest memories of being in Italy is to be on the top of the Marchesi di Barolo. Horrible wines, except they're Canubi. I thought that the wines, generally my first trip to Italy, were so bready and so dirty that maybe out of 300 wines that I tasted while I was in Italy over a couple weeks, I would choose maybe 5 that were crafted appropriately for the modern wine audience, and the other maybe 275 wines. No, I do not. Hold on, it's asking me if I want to stop this video. Hell no. All right, so let's talk about a little bit about decanting. So there's a couple different ways we can decant. So this is going to be really difficult. I'm going to try to put this up here. Now I have one of these, which you probably know this, what's it called? Someone type what this thing is called. It's basically an aerator, and you pour the wine at the top and you put this under your glass and it aerates your glass of wine. For some reason, I've completely lost that part of my brain that remembered what these things are called. Someone can tell everybody else. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in the glass and I'm going to pour the wine in it. And you can hear it makes this kind of like funky burping noise. And that wine has been aerated. Why do we aerate wine? We put dissolved oxygen into the solution of the wine to increase the wine's ability to give off aroma. Now, that's one way that you can sort of ghetto decant your wine. Well, I like to decant wine this is my Syrah decanter from Riedel. Why it's for Syrah, I have no damn idea, but I would say 90% of what Riedel puts out there is marketing, and 10% of it is just the fact that they make some of the best glasses that I've ever used. I don't think it's going to deliver the wine to the part of my palate that I can appreciate it more. The idea of Riedel delivering wine to the flavor areas of your tongue is based on scientific and sort of olfactory and gustatory science that's about 25 years old. We've learned that every single papilla on your tongue can independently sense all 5 senses. So if you think that there's zones on your tongue, you are remembering back to junior high school or a long time ago. There are parts of your tongue that are better at picking up certain scents, but that's just not right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to glug it, and I'm also going to try to put it down the surface of the neck of the decanter. And now that it's in there, my job, I almost said beat it like a redheaded stepchild. Let's just go ahead and say that. If that's controversial, screw it. I'm not going to use any 4-letter explicatives because I had some of my friends tell me their kids are going to be on tonight. So I'm not going to use. I have a very expensive and important English degree. I've got lots of words that I can use. All right, so normally, why haven't I been decanting every single wine that I've been pouring for you? A, to save you time, and B, the fact that I've been drinking the wines that I pour myself a glass or a glass and a half during this program, and I want them to last as long as I can. The only problem with decanting, I've now basically screwed this wine tomorrow. Tomorrow, just basically gave myself a shower. Basically tomorrow, this wine might be tired. Because what I've done is I've taken it from about 1/2 part per million dissolved oxygen in solution to maybe 5 to 10 parts of oxygen in solution. So as a result, and welcome Chef, and welcome Nick. Oh, Nikki's already been here. Oh, thank you. Oh, the Weissels are awesome. So now I have aerated this wine. I'm going to pretend to pour it in my glass because I've already decanted a little bit of wine through this little machine right here. Oh, also notice what it says, Kapalua Wine and Food. I just have to give one quick shout out to Kapalua Wine and Food. When I was a sponsored speaker at Kapalua, what they gave me, well, first of all, they gave me like 3 nights at the Kapalua Hilton. I don't even want to know what that cost. And it was a gorgeous room looking out on the beach. They also gave me a goodie bag that had a coupon for a pair of Maui Jim sunglasses up to $350. A pair of these Hawaiian shoes. Now I have to, Olakais. They gave me up to a $250 pair of Olakai shoes. They gave me the aerator. They gave me 3 little bottles of Grey Goose, 3 little bottles of Fernet. Like they knew me. Everyone got this. They gave me like more chocolate macadamia nuts, like seriously, like 5 pounds of chocolate macadamia nuts. They gave me a towel. They gave me a Henkel knife. They gave me a cutting board. I was sort of expecting that there might be sort of a lean young Polynesian boy in that bag who was basically going to serve whatever sort of needs that I would need. It was that incredible. So if you ever have a chance to go to Kapalua Wine and Food, we're talking Kapalua Wine and Food is the oldest food and wine festival in the United States. But we're talking Kent's Red. So why Kent's Red? You might have remembered yesterday we talked about Jeff Wilkes, and his sister and a lot of his family were here, and they shared some wonderful things that I could share with you. Kent was Kent Pierce, a sailing buddy and the best friend of Jeff Wilkes during his life here on the planet Earth, which unfortunately ended in 2010. Kent, the first thing I did when I got this job at J. Wilkes is I reached out. I reached out to Kent and asked him, hey, I knew Jeff, but I didn't know Jeff. Can we meet for dinner? And can I buy you dinner? And can we have a conversation about who Jeff was, what you knew about him, what his ideas and his everything about that you knew about him? So we had Kent and his wife come into the Santa Barbara Yacht Club, which is where this all started. Without the Santa Barbara Yacht Club, without sailboats, without sailing, I would not be here talking about J. Wilkes Wines. Why? Because that was sort of where the Millers met Jeff Wilkes, and Jeff basically proved to the Millers that he was worthy of employment. He came over to the Miller family, and the Captain Miller, finally decided that Jeff was like another one of his sons. So really amazing that way. Let's talk a little bit about this wine. Kent's Red, 90% Barbera, 10% Lagrein. And I know that all of you are experts at Lagrein, and if you're not, you can go back and watch yesterday's video. Juicy, fruity, cherry, kind of red berry fruits. Lots and lots. There's a little kind of hint somewhere between tar, sour, cherry, and a lot that reminds me quite a lot of Barbera and red wines that are produced in the Langhe. And the Langhe region is really the area where Barolo is the king. So Barolo produces some of the greatest 100% Nebbiolo wines in the world, but they also grow Barbera and as well as Dolcetto. And if you ever have the opportunity, one of the greatest moments in my wine mind that I've ever had is standing at the top of Marchesi de Barolo. The wines kind of sucked. They were kind of expensive, but the Canubi was good. Looking down, we were at the top of the hill, looking all the way around the Langhe. And the person that we were with explained to us at that moment, you could see by block in the vineyard. Some blocks were sort of a dusky green, and that was the Dolcetto. There were blocks that were very yellow, and I want to say that was the Barbera. And then there was blocks that were bright red, which means the vines are virused. And that was the Nebbiolo. So you could actually look out over almost the entire Langhe from the perspective that we were in during post-harvest, late November, getting ready for full dormancy as the vines were shedding their leaves and the leaves were losing their chlorophyll, taking their energy back into their taproot and the trunk of the vine to maintain a little bit of energy so they could wake up in the spring. And we could see basically every block and know without, from 1.5 miles, 2 miles away, we could know exactly what grape it was. And I found that absolutely fascinating. And on we go. It smells like really, really clean Italian Barbera. That's the way that I would describe it. I always think of Barbera as being sort of that cherry blackberry. If you've ever seen a Barbera cluster, they are monumental. I mean, Pinot Noir cluster, you might get, they're certainly not compensating for everything. You can get 6 Pinot Noir clusters in your hand when you're harvesting, and sometimes 6 to 7 clusters per pound. A Barbera cluster can be 2 pounds. So one Barbera cluster can have the same weight as 14 clusters at Clos Pepe or maybe at Bien Nacido. So the clusters literally are this big, while Pinot Noir clusters are just tiny. The berries might be, the size of, between a dime and a quarter or a nickel and a quarter, while Pinot Noir berries might be the size of my pinky nail. So really very juicy. So when you crush a ton of Barbera, you might get 160 gallons of juice in the yield that ends up after you press it, after fermentation. While in Pinot Noir in Santa Rita Hills, we're lucky to get 125 to 130 gallons. So you could lose almost an entire barrel of wine making Pinot Noir as opposed to Barbera, because Barbera is just so damn juicy. Now, if the grapes are juicy and they've got a higher juice to skin ratio, you can expect that the wine would have a little less color and a little less richness. But Barbera is magic. People love Barbera. People love to use Barbera to beef up the Nebbiolo sometimes. Nebbiolo sometimes, in some vintages, lacks the ability to create color. Why? Because Nebbiolo is very difficult to get ripe. And in many, many vintages, especially before this whole climate change thing, in the Longue, especially in Barolo, some of the producers would really struggle to get Nebbiolo ripe. And as a result, they would have to kind of actually increase the color of the wine with a little bit of Barbera. I don't know what the rules are in the DOCG. Where is the best Barbera in the world? And I'll have to admit, I had to look up some of this stuff. So normally, I'm operating without a net. I do have a little bit of a net this year. So the Barbera d'Asti, DOCG, is recognized as producing some of the best, probably the best Barbera in the world. And then if you want to even dig a little bit deeper into it, there's a sub DOCG within it called, I got to be careful, Nizza. Or Nizza, Nizza, Nizza. And Nizza is recognized sort of as the Vin Romani. It's recognized in Pinot Noir. It's recognized as producing probably the best Barbera in the world. Where do we produce Barbera? Gattinera is also a beautiful region, Nebbiolo mostly. That was from Nikki, thank you. She's my net. Really what you're kind of looking at here is a region that produces wonderful Nebbiolo, Barbera, and Dolcetto. Now, where do we produce this wine? As I was mentioning, this wine is produced at the French Camp Vineyard. Both the Barbera and the Lagrein are grown at the French Camp Vineyard. These vines are about 35, 40 years old. They've really reached, there is a strong belief in Italy that older vines, especially Barbera, produce wines that have more age potential. And Barbera can have, just like Lagrein, excellent acidity at full ripeness. So one reason that's really nice is when you're deciding when to pick, when the acid starts just, jumping off a cliff and you're losing acidity every day, it really pushes you to want to pick. Now, in a great grape like Barbera holds its acidity. It just doesn't want to give it up. So you can get the grapes pretty ripe and still have pretty wonderful acidity. So we've had two red grapes, very atypical in a row, Lagrein and Barbera, both in this glass, that are traditionally known for maintaining very good acidity at high levels of sugar. Let's see. There are two other grapes that are increasingly or more planted in Italy. So what two grapes have more acreage than Barbera? I'll give you 3 seconds to answer. I'll give you the answer. Sangiovese is the most planted grape in Italy, and it means the blood of Jupiter. My guess is because of the suffering involved when you try to grow and make Sangiovese. And I was very, very surprised to find out that there are more than 50, because there's 50,000 acres of Barbera in Italy. There's even more acreage of Montepulciano. I was very surprised. Montepulciano is actually the second most popular red grape within Italy. And Kelly's here. I'm not supposed to look, but she gets special attention. All right, and let's see, what else should I tell you about it? I told you about the clusters. Oh, so a little bit of the history. So there's a little region within the areas that we're describing called Monferrato. And in Monferrato, we can go all the way back to the 1200s, the 13th century, to find mention of the Barbera grape. It has like 12 different names, like most things in Italy. But the only one that I recognized was Barbera. And then you put Barbera Rosado, Barbera Rossa, Barbera Mercantile. I mean, you name it. There's like 40 different names for Barbera, but most of them start with Barbera. There's also a grape in a different region of Italy that starts with Barbera. And interestingly, it has no genetic relationship. Very interesting as well. Barbera Bianco, the white Barbera, no genetic relationship to Barbera. It is not a genetic mutation or accession that lost its color. It is a grape that has its own path. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Italian immigrants brought it to California and Argentina in the 19th century and became an important part of both Argentinian and California wine grape culture. It is a workhorse. So people love this stuff. And as a result, it has become a workhorse grape even in the Central Valley of California. But it can make very large amounts of wine that are not very good, just simple fruity table wine. But it can also, with reduced yields on calcareous soils, generally clay loam soils are considered the best, but with high calcium content. But the greatest thing about Paso Robles, the same thing that charges those calcareous and clay loam soils in the Longue, we have sandy loam soils, and these sandy loam soils with a little bit of clay up in Paso Robles approximate the same yield reduction that gets us the intensity, the color, and the flavor that we get in Barbera. Whew, that was a lot of talking. I got a drink. Day drinking. Thank you everyone for being here. So glad you guys are here. We're going to taste a little bit of this beautiful 2017 Kent's Red. And you see that the bottle is empty. You think I've been busy. You're wrong. I've decided to decant. Oh, I should have mentioned another thing about decanting, and I won't spend the whole time doing this, but you can also decant and then take some good clean water that smells good, rinse the bottle if there was sediment in it, and you can always refill the bottle. And that's basically a double decant. You decant and then you put it back in bottle, and then you can serve the wine out of the bottle that comes in. That's one way you can do it. As I said, you can always use the Venturi, that's it, the Venturi. But I also really like using this little guy. It's got you can see it has a little screen in there, and that'll catch all the particulate matter. If you're using like an old Bordeaux or an old port, it'll capture your sediment. And then what I'll do is I'll just put that right on top, and that way I don't really have to worry if there's sediment. I can put that into the decanter, and also when you pour into this specific device, it makes a really pretty like 6 or 7 different streams that come out of it. And now this wine is officially decanted. Again, we decant all wines here in my house except sparkling wine and really old wine. Wait, isn't a decanter all about old wine? No. Old wine should never be decanted. Old wine is in the type of bottle that you can decant from the bottle. So if this is a 25-year-old Barbera, then what you're going to do is you're going to keep it upright, let it settle. All the particulate matter goes to the bottom, or basically all the sediment. And then with a candle or a light here, you're going to pour it in your glass. You're going to pour it in your glass, really nice and gentle. Clean, dirty. Stand it up, let it sit. That's fine. Unless you want to do that beforehand. My problem is old wine, when you decant it, you're going to put so much dissolved oxygen in it. It's like waking your grandma up by throttling her by the neck. Not the nicest thing to do to something that has been incredibly patient, becoming old and wise. And I look at an old wine as like an old friend who wants to share certain secrets with me. And so when we open a great bottle of wine, the last thing you want to do is put a bunch of oxygen in it, because quite honestly, that could make the wine basically collapse, and you can only taste it for a couple minutes before it just becomes something kind of tastes more like dirt than wine, or becomes very dead. So we want there to be some liveliness, some verve in all of our wines, and we want to wake them up in a happy way. So this wine has been woken up in a very important way. Really juicy on the attack, bright cherry berry flavor. About halfway into the mid palate, you can already taste fine tannin and a really, really perky, vervy acid structure. It is not out of balance at all. In fact, for a young wine, it actually tells a story. I limit, and you've never heard me say that on the show. It might be because I decanted it. If I had decanted every wine, maybe they would have shown a little more completely. But this is almost miraculous in the fact that this wine is showing very incredible balance. Remember I said a wine is either round or it's not round? It was a German thing I learned from Heidi Peterson Barrett. This wine is incredibly round because it has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it has harmony. And I don't mean round like it's soft. In fact, this wine is anything but soft. This is a young, slightly tannic, Italian-style red wine that is also juicy, bright, and mineral enough with enough acidity that the finish tells the story. It's actually probably the best showing of this wine. I remember tasting this wine when it was first bottled. It was still a little rough. Definitely can use a decantation. Let's talk food. An Italian would say, yes, the food sounds good, right? If my friends in McPhillips, Cheryl speaks almost fluent Italian, so she could tell me how to say that. But it's pretty difficult to find an Italian meal that doesn't include wine. I would say it would be the equivalent of an American meal without salt and pepper on the table. And it's enjoyed in a way that I honestly believe that Americans have misread European wine culture in the sense that we think we have to talk about a wine to enjoy it. I rarely sit at a table with Italians or French people that talk about a wine. They talk about everything but the wine. And that's why one of my infamous, if it's infamous, Wesisms is that great wine should lead to a conversation about everything except itself. You know, I can be self-important, a wine could give an S. It does not care. So when we get to table, the whole idea is that the wine gets in us so we can, I always think of wine as a prism. A prism cannot break any light into a spectrum that is not first put into the prism. So I look at wine, wine is the prism and my personality goes in and it becomes more colorful. Now, if I'm a jerk, if I'm a D-I-C-K, I will become jerkier and, you know, whatever, ear. So it intensifies my personality. When people say, I'm a really nice guy, but when I drink, I can't control myself, or when I drink, I'm kind of a jerk. I go, no. You're a jerk normally. You can hide it when you're sober. The idea is that wine intensifies whatever personality we introduce it to. So if you're a mensch, you become menchier. If you're a jerk, you become jerkier. I have a very strong belief in that, and that's why Plato in the Phaedrus says, why would I let you date my daughter if we hadn't drank 4 hours together at the symposia? That's very, very much sort of my interpretation of that. But the idea was, Heidi taught me how to judge wine. She gave me the whole thing. If it's round, it's good. If it's not round. Anyways, the idea to me is that Plato was saying that if I'm meeting my daughter's potential mate and we're sober, he can feed me any line of BS he wants to. But if we're like 4 hours in and a couple crateers down and our kylixes are empty and we're laughing, not drunk, but not sober, he will tell me things, just like me telling you things tonight after a shot of Irish whiskey. He will tell me things. He will not be able to hide the deficits in his personality after 4 hours of drinking. After 4 hours of drinking, even in an Athenian method, which is in an Athenian symposia, if you get drunk, if you throw up, if you stagger, if you slur, if you can't stand up and make a political discourse, if you can't stand up and recite a poem or sing a song, if you have not reached that Athenian level of intoxication, or you've gone over the level, you would never be invited back as an Athenian gentleman back into the symposia. So it's incredibly important how we comported ourselves after drinking in the Greek culture. famous guy named Democritus. Look him up. He's just absolutely fantastic. I think he lived to be over 100 years old. And his favorite thing to do was to bring a few mixing bowls and a cratier and a kylix and kylix for all the people. And he would meet with the young men and women of Athens, and he would drink with them and he would teach them. And it was sort of like, I don't want to say that I'm equivalent to Democritus. That's not what he was doing, but it was very similar to this. It was a conversation, it was a lecture, it was a talk, it was a conversation, and I thought that was always amazing. I think I've done it. I think I've done it on the 2017 Kent's Red. It's delicious, and I'm really, really happy with how it. I was really surprised how much change went through this wine as a result of decantation. 90% Barbera, 10% Lagrein. Remember, Lagrein is a sub-Tyrol grape. Schiava, right? Schiava, Nikki? I just want to make sure. I think I said Schiava last time, and she's like, Schiava. I think it's in the same region of the Sub-Tyrol, central northern Italy, in same region that grows the greatest Pinot Grigio and the greatest Pinot Blanc in the world, except maybe Biennacito. Cool. All right, let's take a break. Let's take a tiny little break. I'm going to go through. If you need another drink, go fill your glass. Other than that, I'm going to kind of go back and see who came on. Bob Foster is back. Bob probably taught me more as a wine judge than just anybody else. I believe he worked as a prosecutor in San Diego for most of his career. He's a lawyer and was there at so many of the times where I judged wine. Whenever I had a question, I would always go over to Bob. Bob's an amazing man. Love to spend. Tracy Dahl, so lovely to have you. Martin, Zach's in the house. Allison's here. Robin came in. Kelly, I said hello to. Rick is here. Mr. Pratt. Corrine. Kent Pierce. Well, I want to know the facts, brother. I always want to know the facts. So let me know. But Kent is here. Kent of Kent's Red. So, by the way, Kent, if I were you, I'd go to the wine tasting room as often as I can, especially when this is all over, and say, wait, Kent's Red? Give me a case. And when they send you a bill, say, dude, it's Kent's Red. It literally says on the label, it's your wine. So I would just go ahead and just claim whatever you want. And Bill's here too. And I always want to know Gary Burke, welcome Gary, and John's here too. John Slater. Chris Sawyer's in the house. We got Psalm Power. Chris, you just missed it. I was just talking about decantation and how important it is to open up a wine and how big of a difference it made in this Barbera Lagrein blend. 90% Barbera, 10% Lagrein, Kent's Red, 2017. I'm just going to go ahead and let you guys know the 2017 Kent's Red is available on millerfamilywines.com. You can get, if you order six bottles, you get 20% off. I think if you order a case, you get 30% off. I think the starting price, starting price is $30. So you're looking at what, 18 or 20 or something like that. So damn fine $20 wine. And as anyone will know that really understands Italian wines, especially when they're grown without trying to push the ripeness and going over, wine that has beautiful acidity like this, clearly this wine can go 10 years in the cellar, although most Barberas really start showing some secondary and tertiary characters around the 5 to 7 year mark. For most American wine consumers that consume 85 to 90% of their wine within 48 hours purchase, this wine's ready to go, but I would decant the heck out of it. Shaking it, and really, really beating this wine up is just making it better and better by the moment. My big question is how is it going to be tomorrow after this much dissolved oxygen has been put in it? Love it, and Richard's here too. All right, so what we do is in between the wine and our conversations on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I usually stop, see who's here, talk a little bit. Normally on Tuesdays, I would say, I hope you guys all enjoyed that beautiful Kent's Red. Go buy some, support the Miller Family Wines, J. Wilkes, blah, blah, blah. But yesterday we were talking about Jeff Wilkes and his history and all of that wonderful stuff, and had a lot of the Wilkes family join us from Texas and all over. And so today I was so interested in talking about Jeff and his history and some of the stuff that I just found out about him, that I neglected to talk about the AVAs of Santa Barbara. So right now we are starting a little bit of what we're going to talk about, which is going to be AVAs of Santa Barbara. Some of the AVAs that I helped write and petition and establish, and some of the AVAs I didn't. So let's talk about the AVAs of California, or of Santa Barbara. And California is even a great place to start, because the first AVA in the United States was Cornell Valley, which is actually in Ohio. So AVA program starts out, Ohio gets the first AVA in the United States. What's the second AVA in the United States? Boom, Napa Valley, California. Napa, probably the most important word in New World wine. What word is more important in New World wine than Napa? It has such power that there's a lot of legislation and regulations that go around with where you can and can't use Napa. So let's back up and cheers. I'm not supposed to talk about people or welcome them during my presentation. I will get focused. It has nothing to do with Irish whiskey. The more wine I drink, the more focused I will become. So Santa Maria Valley. Santa Maria Valley. When I think Santa Maria Valley, I think Bien Nacido. When I think Santa Maria Valley, I think Foxen. When I think Santa Maria Valley, I think Jim Clendenin. I think of Bob Lindquist. I think of Gary Burke. I think of all the delicious wines that come out of Sierra Madre, that come out of the Gary Vineyard, Gary with an E, not the Francione. So many delicious vineyards in Santa Maria Valley, but the third AVA in the United States ends up being Santa Maria Valley, now the home of where I'm making wine. So in 1981, we got the AVA for Santa Maria Valley. A number of years later, they expanded the AVA to be a little more generous and to make sure that it captured all the vineyards that really made Santa Maria Valley so important. Santa Maria Valley to me means cool climate, foggy, windy, something I learned from the Foxen boys. Bill Wathen once told me, I heard him at a lecture and I'm like, I'm writing this down because it's mine, because brilliance borrows and genius steals. Did I say Billy Wathen said it? No, I came up with it. No. Bullshit. It's Billy Wathen. Billy Wathen told me at a conference, Santa Maria vines are lazy. They are lazy vines. And that's what kind of makes Santa Maria Valley so special, is that the vines wake up at like 9 in the morning and they look out and it's foggy and they're like, screw it, I'm going back to sleep. They get up at 11, they're like, oh, I think the fog's breaking. All of a sudden, like 11:30, they're like, all right, let's spread some leaves. If you've ever watched time lapse of a vineyard, do you know leaves actually follow the azimuth of the sun? They actually will follow the sun all day. If you watch a time lapse video of a vineyard during the day, the entire vineyard, every leaf, as much as it can articulate, will follow the sun. It almost looks like these things are conscious. And I love grapevines with all my heart. You know how much I know about grapevines. The history, the clones, the genetic accession, all of that stuff. It's just fantastic. But in Santa Maria Valley, they only have a very small amount of time to follow the sun. So between maybe on an average spring or summer day, maybe the fog breaks at 11, and then the wind gets really intense around 3 or 4, because we basically have a straight open shot to the Pacific Ocean between the Casmalia Hills and some of the other areas in the west side of Santa Maria. So unlike the Santa Rita Hills, where the wind gets whipped through these very intense, torturous east-west maritime throat, we do have sort of the transverse range in Santa Maria Valley, but it's very large and open. So the wind comes in with a little less intensity. I think a huge difference between Santa Maria Valley and Santa Rita Hills is wind intensity and how the wind influences the wine, whether it thickens the skins, whether it washes over the clusters to keep them a little cooler, so they don't really get, because when Pinot Noir clusters and Chardonnay clusters and cool climate clusters get too warm, it starts to degrade the more delicate aromas and phenolic compounds within the skins and the grapes, and the wine might not be as good. I've known that if it gets 110 degrees in the Santa Rita Hills, it's not going to be the same vintage as if it didn't get 110 degrees. I've had vintages in Santa Maria and Santa Rita Hills where we hit 100 degrees and the grapes dealt with it. Irrigation, proper vineyard management, proper canopy management managed to keep the wine and the grapes safe. So when we brought them in, we were still able to make great wine. I've had other vintages. I think of '04, I think of 2010, where the grapes get so ripe that the wines end up being not expressive of a place, but of a style, of ripeness, of high alcohol, high extract. And I remember making the 2010 in Santa Rita Hills, and it was so ripe. It was over 15% alcohol, and I was a little, maybe I should have watered it down, but I didn't very much. I did add a little water in the fermentation just to make sure we didn't end up with 17.5% alcohol. But I remember bringing that wine to the wine house for a big Santa Rita Hills tasting. And I remember the first 3 people came to my table right as the doors opened. And I poured them a little of the 2010 Clos Pepe. This was 2012. And I apologized. I said, listen, this is very atypical for my style. I'm known for making fairly elegant, restrained Pinot Noir out of the Santa Rita Hills. This one is over 15%. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Dude, you have to come over. All of a sudden I was swamped. Like, I was apologizing for the style, but it brought all the boys to the yard because, man, I'm telling you, big, rich, ripe wines is what you want to drink standing up. Standing up, evaluating wines, if you have 100 wines in front of you, what's going to stand out? You know, it's not going to be the delicate little ballerina in the corner. It's going to be sort of the showy playmate in the middle that has so many curves you can't not pay attention. So, in a sense, that I learned that day that ripeness gets the attention, but I'm very glad that I didn't move to start really, really making wines to get attention. Because I love attention, like most human beings. I like people watching and paying attention to me. But sometimes I think that, you know, a poem is better than a limerick. A delicate wine is better than a rich wine. And I don't generally drink wine as a cocktail. I generally drink wine at table. And I find if the wine is more powerful than the food, it just doesn't make good friends. So I like to make wines that are a little more delicate. And Santa Maria Valley gives me the delicate intensity, and it does have intensity. There's verve in these wines. There's liveliness in these wines. There's beautiful, beautiful structure in these wines. And if you taste a great Biennacido Pinot Noir or Chardonnay, Gary's Pinot Noir, or, you know, like Sierra Madre, or you know, even some of the really good values from the Jackson family, you know, looking at Byron or Cambria, the wines are great. The wines are just delicious. So Santa Maria Valley, sandy soil, foggy, windy, cool. Here comes wines that are going to be, the vines are going to wake up probably in early March, and they're going to hang until mid-September on average. And really, it's got the wind and the fog and everything that really needs to keep the grapes as cool, and the wines being elegant and restrained, and that's what happened. Santa Ynez was approved. Santa Ynez AVA was approved in 1983, just 2 years after Santa Maria Valley. I want to say nice things about the Santa Ynez AVA, but basically my life has been a process of revising the idea of the Santa Ynez Valley AVA. What do I mean by that? When the Santa Ynez Valley AVA was first established, it was very political and inclusive. I have no problem with that. When I write an AVA petition, what I learned from Santa Ynez Valley, and what I learned from Santa Rita Hills, writing the Santa Rita Hills, and we'll talk about that, is that if you're not generous, someone's going to come after you. And I think most of you know who I'm talking about, to change the AVA and to grab little corners that we originally excluded. I strongly believe the AVA petition that we submitted in 1997 and the AVA that was approved in 2001 for Santa Rita Hills was incredibly accurate. But you have to be careful. So one thing about Santa Ynez Valley, it's kind of like everything for everyone. It goes literally from Lompoc, Region 1A, to Happy Canyon, Region 4. What other AVA in the United States can you grow sparkling wine and Nebbiolo? You can grow Gruner Veltliner, and you can grow Cabernet Sauvignon. It doesn't speak to things. 72 different varietals last time I looked, within a 30-mile corridor. And on a hot summer day, it's 75 degrees in Lompoc and 100, maybe even more, in Happy Canyon. So we're talking about on a normal warm day, we're talking about a 30-degree temperature shift, 1 degree per mile. So Santa Barbara County, the take-home message Santa Barbara County is the most diverse wine growing region in the entire planet Earth in a 30-mile corridor. From Lompoc to Lake Cachuma, from sparkling wine to the biggest, ripest reds. That's what we struggle with at the Santa Barbara County Vintners Association, trying to find a tagline that will explain that diversity is good in a culture that wants to be Zinfandel, the Zinfandel group, or the Rutherford Dust Society. It's all about cab. It's all about place. Problem with, and I'm being extremely honest here, the problem with promoting Santa Barbara County is we grow 72 different grapes, and some of them are absolutely world-class. So one thing that I've been doing is I've been petitioning for these AVAs, the AVAs that I wrote, Santa Rita Hills, Happy Canyon, Ballard Canyon, Alisos Canyon, which is coming up. The idea was, let's break these areas down and give it a varietal focus. Santa Rita Hills, let's talk about Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. Ballard Canyon, let's talk about Syrah, Mourvèdre. Let's talk about Viognier, Marsanne, Roussanne. Syrah, obviously. And then Happy Canyon, let's talk about Sauvignon Blanc. Let's talk about Cabernet Merlot and all the things that grow there. But to me, let's give one grape. So Santa Maria Valley, Chardonnay. I think Santa Maria Valley produces some of the Chardonnay in the entire New World outside maybe the Sonoma coast. And we did just lose our Wes Hagen Facebook page. So I am going to have to do this once again. And apologize. That was just a little digital hiccup. So welcome back. Sorry about that. So I would say, in fact, I'm going out on a limb. I'm going to say both Santa Maria Valley and Santa Rita Hills, the best grape that is grown in either of those regions is Chardonnay. End of story. Greg Brewer and maybe Nikki would agree with me, and not a lot of other people would. But in a culture, Anita, welcome. I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to talk about that. In a culture where Chardonnay is synonymous with white wine and it's also a commodity, sometimes Chardonnay doesn't get a lot of love, but Sonoma Coast, Santa Rita Hills, Santa Lucia Highlands, Santa Maria Valley make some of the best Chardonnay on the planet Earth, without a doubt. Santa Rita Hills, 2001, that was the first AVA that I wrote, that I petitioned with Brian Babcock, Rick Longoria, the Melville Boys, Eli Parker. Still have pictures in my computer of us going out and checking out all the locations of Brian Babcock and I basically trespassing on about 20 different properties to see where the AVA should start and stop. We walked that entire AVA and asked ourselves this fundamental question: is that area perfect for the production of cool climate Pinot Noir and Chardonnay? In fact, in the Santa Rita Hills wine growers, for the first 7 or 8 years that we had an organization, we would not allow any member to pour anything but Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. Then some of the Syrahs and some of the other wines started poking out, and we thought, it's terroir, it's dirt. There's no reason we should say no to anything. Remember what Bertrand Russell says, that nature says no, but wine says yes. 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 I'm sort of evoking the very end of James Joyce's Ulysses, which I read the last page just to make sure I could tell people what was on it. Very difficult book. All right, so the next AVA that came out after that was Happy Canyon of Santa Barbara. So we have Santa Maria, San Ynez. I should mention that San Ynez was so large and sort of cumbersome that it really had no message. It was a very political AVA that covered every vineyard within Santa Barbara County. Basically 99.5% of all vineyards within Santa Barbara County were contained within the San Ynez Valley AVA. But when you have an AVA where there's a 30-degree temperature variation, we obviously have to break that up. So we made the Santa Rita Hills in 2001. It was revised in 2005, and in my estimation, revised again, unfortunately, in, I guess that was 2015. Santa Barbara, or Happy Canyon of Santa Barbara. So Happy Canyon was something that Mary Beth Vogelzang and I worked on. We met in Los Olivos and had lunch. She threw a bunch of money at me and said, hey, write us an AVA petition. I said, why wouldn't I? We did some research. We found out where the grapes were being grown. Then I met with a man named Robert Ettling, who you may know if you're a local. He's kind of a famous local realtor. He says, I think you're missing it. I think there's a lot of area north of where you're going to petition this AVA that can really grow some great grapes. Talked to Brian Babcock, who believed that really the comfort zone and the happy zone is more a little bit shifted west of where I was petitioning the Santa Rita Hills. And I said, well, someone else can write that AVA. But I definitely looked at the weather patterns. What do you look for when you do? I've got a secret. I'm going to tell you basically like my 4 secrets of writing an AVA. So after writing 4 AVAs, here's how to write an AVA. Make someone give you a lot of money. Take that money and throw it to a GIS, GPS expert who has at least a master's degree in it. Ask them to produce overlay maps within a USGS 8.5 series, 8.5 minute series USGS topo map, and use those topo maps to basically show me on top what the precipitation patterns are, what the wind patterns are, what the soil looks like from these Dibley maps. If you've never seen these Dibley maps of Santa Barbara soil, they're like art. They're so gorgeous. So what's the soil series? What's the rainfall? What's the wind pattern? What's the temperature? Temperature is, of course, incredibly important. Where does it go from a region 2 to a region 3? Where does the wind come from? Is there influx of marine air, which is incredibly important? And then after I pay my GIS GPS expert a nice 5-figure income to do all of this work for me, and this is basically the first time I did an AVA, I basically tried to do it all myself because I basically got shanghaied into doing it. Well, not shanghaied. I said I would do it, and I didn't know what I was getting myself into. So what ends up happening is we get all this GIS and GPS data in a map form, in a visual form. I tend to be a fairly visual person. So I'll start looking at the map, and I'll start looking back and forth on these transparencies. There's the precipitation, there's not the precipitation. Okay, there's the soil, there's not the soil. There's the climate, there's the temperature. Okay, and then there's the wind patterns. Where's the break? Where's the break on the west? Where's the break on the east? Where's the break on the north? Where's the break on the south? And how can I produce a document that when the TTB looks at it, or excuse me, now it is the TTB. It used to be ATF. When the TTB looks at it, they think, wow, this guy did his research. And what you want to do, remember, the people that are going to approve or decline your AVA petition are not scientists, they're not wine drinkers, they're not sommeliers, and they have no interest in hearing from any of those people. What they want to know is climate data, precipitation data, soil data, historical data, and basically the fact that the area you're describing is known by the local and the national world as saying, yes, that is Happy Canyon. That's what we call Happy Canyon. That's Ballard Canyon. So then after I look at all the data, I ask myself this fundamental question. If you tell people, and you've told people for 5 to 10 years, where do you live? I live in Ballard Canyon. If you've been telling people that for 10 years, living on a property, you should be within the AVA. If you tell people, I live in Happy Canyon should include your property. Easy thing, Ballard Canyon is a canyon. So if you live someplace where the water goes into Ballard Canyon, you're in Ballard Canyon. If you're in Happy Canyon and the water goes into the watershed, chances are you should be in Happy Canyon. I've had a couple, I did have one vineyard that I found that they said, hey, we're in Happy Canyon, but literally the water that fell on their vineyard would never go into Happy Canyon, so I excluded them. If they would have paid me to write the AVA, would have I included them? I'd like to say no, because I try to be as scientific about this stuff as I can and use wine and all this stuff to focus in on what it means. But Happy Canyon to me meant hot climate, Sauvignon Blanc, #1 grape in Happy Canyon, in my belief. Cabernet, Merlot, Cabernet blends, big red wines. Nebbiolo, I think, will do well out there. You could probably even grow some Barbera. Grapes that require a lot of heat summation are perfectly appropriate in Happy Canyon. For whatever reason, I'm just thinking that the Sauvignon Blanc in Happy Canyon is my favorite wine that comes out of that region, and one of my favorite wines that comes out of Santa Barbara County. Ballard Canyon. Ballard Canyon. Okay, so we've got Santa Maria Valley 81, San Ynez Valley AVA 83, Santa Rita Hills 2001, and then edited in 2005, edited in 2015. I guess just every so many years we have to change it. Happy Canyon of Santa Barbara 2009 was the final approval, and then the next AVA in Santa Barbara County was Ballard Canyon. The first and only AVA that I know of personally, and this was all driven. Really by Michael Larner at the Larner Vineyard. And I mean, it really all started really with Ballard Canyon Winery and that wonderful dentist that was up there that for some reason his name is escaping me. Damn whiskey. So Ballard Canyon was approved in 2013. We basically wrote the petition after Happy Canyon. I think we wrote the petition between 2011. It's the only AVA that was the idea of the AVA started in the sommelier community. So if you know Randy Caproso, I think it's Caproso. He is one of the guys over the Sommelier Journal. It's a wonderful guy, a very good sommelier. Randy and a bunch of his Somm pals got to go up to the Larner Vineyard and taste all the Syrahs that were being produced in that little area of San Ynez Valley. And on their way out, all these guys stood up and said, darn it, this deserves an AVA. Michael heard it, called me the next week and said, hey, what it's going to take for us. Patty, I'm not supposed to do this. Patty, do you remember the name of the dentist? I'm very curious because I should really remember this because it's now the Rusak Vineyard. So basically sommeliers asked for an AVA to be produced. Michael Larner took it, threw some cash at me. I did my little magic with my GPS and GIS overlays, added some good stuff, put in the petition, boom, got our stuff. By the way, I do still believe Happy Canyon, to back up, the Happy Canyon process, when we submitted the AVA petition, I believe that we got approval faster than any AVA in the history of the process, which I'm really happy about, which means there was nothing in the document that would slow down the process. So that is one thing that I'm happy about. Ballard Canyon, 2013. Next AVA was the first AVA since 1983 that I didn't write. And that was Fred Brander's project of the Los Olivos district. Now, Fred called me and said, hey, could you come out to Brander? I want to, hang out and talk about AVA petitioning. I said, well, of course, Fred, because Fred won the first gold medal of any wine in Santa Barbara County. Fred, to me, represents one of the greatest Sauvignon Blanc producers in California. I've always gotten along with Fred. He's always been incredibly respectful and kind to me. So I went over to Brander, and this would have been, I guess, about 2014, right after Ballard Canyon. And he said, kind of thinking about using the eastern border of Happy Canyon and the western border of Ballard Canyon to contain Los Olivos district so there will be zero overlap. And my mouth dropped because A, it was a vindication of my boundaries. And B, I knew that the TTB was going to freak out. If you know anything about the evolution of AVAs, it's like Napa, Yountville, fighting with Spring Mountain fighting with Veeder. I mean, everyone is fighting, and I don't know enough about Napa to know if those places are even adjacent. And I'm happy in that ignorance. But I would have to say that in the end, we actually use the same boundaries. So our boundaries within the Santa Barbara County wine growing firmament actually all agree on their boundaries. So Los Olivos is nestled in between Happy Canyon on the east and Ballard Canyon on the west, and the boundaries are the same. I was really happy leaving that meeting, and Karen Thornton, who's the head of the TTB program that overlooks AVAs, actually shared with me that they were all basically just mouth open, like, no way. There are people within a wine growing region that actually agree, like each other, and have agreed to agree. Very unusual. So I love the fact that the Los Olivos district is basically this beautiful area for wine production that basically is contained within the eastern and western boundaries of the existing AVAs. All right, little secret, there's going to be a new AVA coming out this year in Santa Barbara County, and yep, I wrote it. And it's going to only include really 2 properties right now, which are the Thompson Vineyard, which is now calling Dovecote. If you don't know the Thompson Vineyard, you don't know Santa Barbara County Syrah. This was Bedford Thompson's home for a long, long time. Not only a great winery, but a great cultural operation. Saw some great Shakespeare Under the Stars out there, Midsummer's Night Dream. Fantastic times. But really, the Alisos Canyon, when I first got hired by the Robles, who currently own Dovecote / Thompson, I found out that they wanted to make an AVA that was obviously going to be contained within a larger Los Alamos AVA later. So I had to ask myself, can you produce the micro AVA before you produce the macro AVA? If we make this little Alisos Canyon AVA, which is tiny, Martian Vineyard and Dovecote, will the folks in these large corporate wineries, or maybe they just want to stick with Santa Barbara County? Obviously, that's probably what they want to do because they haven't started the AVA process. Los Alamos AVA has started and stopped a couple of times, and no one's continued to do it. So eventually, I think there will be a Los Alamos AVA that will connect Santa Rita Hills to Santa Maria Valley, which is the area in between. It's sort of a slightly region 2 warmer region for the production of Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. It is a production region. It's a region that produces a lot of grapes. And that's exactly what sort of how that works. There we go. So now you've got Alisos Canyon, which is going to be in 2020. So it looks like about every 5 to 7 years, I write an AVA that becomes, so what's next? I don't know. To be honest, I think we've got what we need in Santa Maria Valley, or in the Santa Ynez Valley and in Santa Barbara County wine. I don't really think we need a lot of further AVAs. To be honest, when Nicholas Miller asked me to come in for a job interview, I did not think he was going to hire me as a winemaker. I thought he was going to hire me as an AVA petitioner to petition to separate the Tepisque bench, which would be Bien Nacido, Catherine's, all the vineyards of Nielsen, all Byron, Cambria, and Bien Nacido, and then some of probably North Canyon vineyards, basically in Santa Maria Valley as the Tepisque bench. And when he told me he wanted to hire me as a winemaker, I was probably even more happy. So how lucky were we? So we've got Santa Maria, Santa Ynez, Santa Rita Hills, Happy Canyon, Santa Barbara, Ballard Canyon, Los Olivos District, and now Alisos Canyon. Will there be another AVA in Santa Barbara County? Maybe even micro? I don't know. If I was going to guess, I don't know. Maybe we'd go back to the moment we found out that we got the AVA in Santa Rita Hills. I remember we were all so happy, ecstatic that we got our AVA, except for one person on the table, and that was Bruno D'Alfonso. And Bruno, take it with a grain of salt, it was after lunch, he stood up and said, we screwed this whole thing up. That basically Santa Rosa Road and Highway 246 are clearly different as the Côte de Beaune and the Côte de Nuit, the Côte de Nuit and the Côte de Beaune. And you know what, damn it, we should have made 2 AVAs. Part of me is like, STF, Bruno, come on, can't we at least have a moment, And I've always respected Bruno because he's an intellectual guy and he understands wine, he understands the dirt, and he's been making wine in this region a lot longer than I have. So much respect, but at that point, I really just wanted to be happy about the AVA. Could we split the Santa Rita Hills into the north and the south? I hope we could. I mean, that would be kind of fun, I guess. But you know what? Santa Rita Hills is a unifying name of both Santa Rosa Road and Highway 246. So let's just stick with that for sure. All right, I think you guys know a little bit about the AVAs. If you have any questions about the AVAs, I will be spending a couple minutes. I'll probably be on for another 5 or 10 minutes. And I am going to see who has come in while I've just been yakking it up. And let's see, Karen came in, Keith came in, Slater, Mario's. Oh my gosh, if you've never been to Mario's restaurant across the street from the Mission Inn in Riverside, why would you go to the Inland Empire? I lived in the Inland Empire. I went to the University of Redlands. I taught at Eisenhower High School in Rialto. for 3 years, and I lived up in the mountains for a while. I was out in the Inland Empire for about 10 years. Mario's is one of the best, not only the best restaurants I've been to in Riverside, but also one of the best restaurants I've been to in Southern California. If you've never been, you should. I went to a wine event there. All the pictures that I use for day drinking were me having a winemaker dinner at Mario's. We had something like 750 wine glasses. I mean, we had like 12 wine glasses for like 50 people or something. We had like at least a dozen wines. I'm thinking more like 20 wines, all from Clopepi. We tried to drink every Clopepi ever. So many wines. It was amazing. The person that was in charge of the stemware did not miss one wine out of all that. So I got much love for Mario's for sure. And I'm certainly not a political person, but I remember the owner that night had a picture of Putin holding a little baby Trump in his hand, and I thought it was clever, regardless of my political affiliation. All right, Taco Tuesday, Smashberry Rosé, perfect with a venison banh mi. Oh, you making venison banh mi? Oh, much love, man. That's freaking delicious. I'm doing, I don't know what I'm exactly going to do tonight, but it's going to be delicious. Ed came in. So lovely to have you. Veronica and Angelina are both in the house. Thank you, Joseph. I did not mention their names. And Keith is saying hello to John. That's fantastic. Joseph is saying, yay, guts. What else is he going to say? This dude was basically a Marine, just like Joker. He was basically a Marine, a writer, and a journalist, just like the fabulous character of Joker in Full Metal Jacket. And Phil's in the house again. Thank you so much for being here, Phil. And Bob came back. Thank you so much. Sherry Cask Speyside Single Malt Scotch, 21 years. Cadenhead. Wow, 21-year-old Scotch. I love 21-year-old Scotch for the smoothness, for tasting it and going, damn. But I'll tell you, given the option, I normally, if I want to understand Speyside flavors, or if I want to understand Highland or Lowland or Elay, you name it, 12-year has the character of the place and the character of the mellowness. I'm a 12-year Scotch fan, and don't hate me, but Highland Park 12 just does it for me. And Kristen Labonte, my favorite librarian, and Zinban telling me it was a Venturi before I remembered. Thank you, sir. Peter Rogers is in the house. Thank you, Mayor. Kelly is drinking some Kent's Red. She probably knows Kent. I still need to get to Kent told me that part of my presentation was not 100% factual, and I always say if you can school me on this Facebook Live, I'll send you a prize or something. I always want to know if I do not give accurate information. I do my best to be performative, and sometimes to be performative, I can elaborate just a touch, and my wife knows that more than anyone. 2015 Nebbiolo from Carema. Sounds great. Carpenter's in the house. Jake, I hope everything is well. Jolie, Mensch, funny you don't look Jewish. Come on. I was a self-loathing Presbyterian as a kid. All my friends were Jewish. I went to all their bar mitzvahs, and I saw that they basically got hooked up for college and beyond. That's not their only reason, but I've always loved the idea of the Jewish people. Did you know if you were born from a Jewish womb, your chance of winning a Nobel Prize goes up 3,700% over the regular population? So if you have a culture that wins 67% of every Nobel for economics in the history of the Nobel, chances are there's something about that culture that gives us amazing scientists, amazing thinkers, amazing doctors, amazing lawyers, amazing musicians, amazing comedians, amazing entertainers. Just they're not great athletes, but I've given them so much love for everything else. I was thinking about, was it Koufax? Yeah, Koufax was a hell of an athlete. Tommy, welcome. And we've got John's in the house. Eddie, Bruno. I got a Bruno, yes, indeed. What is your favorite Greek god or goddess? I did actually spend a week with a bunch of PhDs going through Ovid's Metamorphosis. So, I mean, we could talk about all the different all the different things. I mean, one thing I love about Dionysus is that within the stories within Ovid's Metamorphoses, which is the second most cited book in the history of Western civilization behind the Bible, it's basically different stories about the gods changing people from one thing into the other. That the priests of Dionysus and the Bacchantes, as well as the male priests, would go through this town. And I think this was the tale of Lycaon. And they would sing out in Greek, "Come, come now, we drink with the god Dionysus." And the term for that, I want to make sure I get it right, is generally accepted as the basis for the idea of hallelujah. It was Eleleus, E-L-E-L-E-U-S, Eleleus. And when the priests of Dionysus would come through your town and scream, Eleleus, Eleleus, and you did not come out of your house to drink a kylix of wine or to drink with the priests and priestesses of Bacchus who was coming, or excuse me, of Dionysus who was coming through, what happened is Dionysus himself came down to Lycaeus, who was, I believe, the mayor. Pay attention, Peter. The mayor of this little Greek town, and turned him into a wolf. And basically some horrible stuff happened to him. So when the priests of Dionysus, when the Bacchantes come and sing Eleleus, Eleleus, come, now we drink, make sure to listen to what they say. So I'm going to go ahead and say, yeah, Dionysus would make perfect sense. Notice was that Steve Miller had said lots of people thought his parents, Captain and Mrs. Miller, had 3 sons, Steve, Bobby, and Jeff. Yes, that is correct. Steve, Bobby, and Jeff. So Jeff would have been certainly a late thought, a little younger than Bobby and Stephen, but I love that thing. And I think that I did actually mention that. And I did send you 2 corkscrews, Kelly. And every corkscrew that I send anyone through this show has been used on this show. It's sort of like getting a guitar pick from a band that you really don't care about. Unless you play guitar, it's still a good tool. Barrel Burner Chardonnay tonight. She had a bit of the 18 Smash Red. Both are quite nice. Thank you so much, Michelle. I hope you're enjoying those. Pancakes and waffles. What's a good wine to pair with them? I would definitely do that with a sparkling Moscato that has some sweetness, or a Demasec champagne, or a Demasec sparkling Vouvray would be lovely, or a late harvest wine. Generally, I don't drink wine with pancakes and waffles, but I did do a chicken and waffle dish. I did a very, very small, like a chicken strip and a quarter of a Belgian waffle. And then I made a maple bacon gravy. And the bacon maple gravy, we did it with a dry champagne. I did it with a Gloria Ferrer non-vintage Brut Rosé. And I thought it actually matched really beautifully. We did the maple gravy did have syrup in it, but the residual sugar was low enough and the fat level was high enough that the acid and the fruit within that Gloria Ferrer sparkling wine, which you'll find out when we do my favorite wines under $20. Gloria Ferrer non-vintage Brut Rosé is always among them. I believe it's made by the Freshenet Company. Chris, schooling, first AVA, Augusta. Thank you. I thought it was Cornell Valley for some reason, but you're right. It was the Augusta, Missouri. Thank you. Chris, if you send me or a private message on Facebook, I will send you a corkscrew. Yeah, late harvest Pinot Blanc with some pancakes. That's possible. But yeah, day drinking, that's more than drinking. That's extra credit there, my friend. All right. 2020 Holstein. Love it. Let me take Lake Arrowhead. I lived in, Teresa was talking about eating at Mario's when she lived up at Lake Arrowhead. Lake Arrowhead is where I summered as a child, and the smell of that lake and learning to catch crawdads. And I drowned in Lake Arrowhead. Here's an interesting idea. When I was 3.5 years old and I could swim like a little dolphin, I fell off a dock in Lake Arrowhead. And for whatever reason, I did not attempt to swim. I just sunk into the lakeweed. I have no idea why. I got all the way down to the bottom. I felt incredibly peaceful. One reason why perhaps I have never been an incredibly religious person is because I did basically have a near-death experience when I was a toddler, just between a toddler and about 3.5 years old. I sank to the bottom of Lake Arrowhead, and my dad saved me, pulled me out, got the water out of my lungs, and got me breathing again. But I basically had a near-death experience at the age of 3, and I remember it being so incredibly peaceful that I had no interest in swimming to the top of the lake, and for whatever reason, and I was a very good swimmer. So there's something you never knew about Wes Hagen. He drowned when he was 3 in Lake Arrowhead. So it is a small world. So thank you for that, Teresa. I'm bringing back such a traumatic memory. No, I'm just fine. Whiskey makes everything good. All right, blueberries, bananas in your pancakes, walnuts, and some whipped cream. Well, I know that you're a yoga guy, Eddie, but that's a little too healthy for pancakes. In the Hagen household growing up, it was all about bacon and chocolate chips. Bacon bits in waffles, bacon bits in pancakes. And we are close enough to Solvang and Buellton that I think of Ellen's Pancake House and maybe Paula's Pancake House, and eating those delicious, tiny, delicious, thin, what they call pancakes and other people might call crepes. Oh yes, it is not the last day for DD50 discount. So what we have, there was a really good question, and welcome, Julie. Today and tomorrow. Tomorrow, Wednesday, the 15th of April, 2020, at midnight will be the last moment that you can use the 11:59 seconds. The last time that the website Miller Family Wines or jwilkes.com will accept the DD50 promo code for 50% off all the wine. In fact, tomorrow, I may do a quick tasting of a wine, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through all of the wines that are for sale and just give a little bit of just a little tasting profile on it. I might not put it in my mouth and open a bottle, but I'll show you all, I think 9 or 10 wines that are on sale for $7.50 a bottle, delivered under $100. It's 1 cent a case shipping. So the last day is tomorrow at midnight, and I am going to take my show tomorrow. And after I talk a little bit, what are we talking about tomorrow? I think tomorrow we're talking a little bit about the company, the places we grow grapes. That might not be accurate, but it's on the website, and exactly. I have listed what our subject matter is for tomorrow. So tomorrow we'll talk about all the wines that are for sale, put them to bed, and basically tell you guys what you can get for $7.50 a bottle for about $90 a case delivered. And then we will talk about what is coming next. And I will give you, because you guys are here and you're listening, I will tell you we are doing a mixed case of 2016 library wines that were discovered because I kept bothering the warehouse to say, hey, what can I show? What can I sell? And it turns out we have 2 2016 wines, one that you know about, one that you don't. So starting on Thursday, the new deal is going to be 6 bottles of 2016 Pinot Blanc, which is one of my favorite vintages of Pinot Blanc that we've made out of Biennacido and the Santa Maria Valley. It is a Santa Maria Valley designate. It does not say anything about the vineyard that I just mentioned. 6 bottles of 2016 Pinot Blanc, which are still crisp, bright, super fresh, and can go another 5 to 10 years in the cellar. And then 6 bottles of our 2016 J. Wilkes Zinfandel, which is a double gold medal winner from the Orange County Fair. Absolutely delicious. Love it. And we're going to offer all of those wines for those of you who are not in the wine club. I think it's $150 for the case with a $5 shipping. So for $155, it ends up being $13 a bottle for wines that are normally between $20 and $30 a bottle. And then if you're in the wine club, you get it for like $120, which is like $10 a bottle. So we're also going to offer, hopefully, the opportunity for you guys to just join the wine club and buy the wine, which means as long as you're willing to get a 3 or 6 bottle shipment in fall, and a 3 to 6 bottle shipment again, probably in late. I think we do 3 shipments of 3 to 6 bottles, very high discount. You guys are going to get a ridiculous discount. So yes, this is me trying to get folks to jump in and join the J. Wilkes Wine Club, but also giving you guys a killer deal at about $13 a bottle delivered on library release 16 Pinot Blanc. and Zinfandel, and we only have 10 cases. So it's going to be tight. It's going to probably go pretty quick. So we might be able to find more, I hope, but that's kind of the plan for now. And I hope all of you enjoyed. I apologize for telling a story about my drowning and a story about my wife getting me to work out, having a wonderful time. Yes, all these talks are archived. Of course, Kristen Labonte and Julie and Martin. Martin, it's DD50. Throw some DDs at it. I won't say double Ds. DD50. Capital D, capital D50. I don't know if the capitalization works, but no, my favorite librarian just asked a really good question to archive all these talks that I've given. Too late, it's already up. We have a YouTube channel for Jay Wilkes, and we have a YouTube channel for Miller Family Wine Company. I also have a YouTube channel for Wes Hagen with some of my older stuff on it. V is for Vino has some great videos of me as well. And there's places, if you want to see even more, you can always look up The Lip TV, The Wine Down. That's another thing that I did. And someone's calling me. Mark Oliver, one of my friends from college. He is a yoga instructor in South Beach, Florida. Really good guy. And very surprised he ended up being a yoga instructor with all the fun and crazy stuff that we did throughout college. Great roommate, and he actually fought someone for me. I felt he thought someone disrespected me and actually got in a fight with him. I've never been fought over. Kind of felt like Pinot Noir with the sun and the fog fighting. Anyways, it was a wonderful time. I hope you guys all had fun tonight. We talked about Barbera. We talked about the Kent's Red. We talked about decantation. We talked about dissolved oxygen. We talked about day drinking. We talked about the Venturi. We talked about putting stuff through a screen so crap doesn't end up in your wine if it's old. We lit a couple candles. We had a great time. We got our day drinking on. I hope you guys will all come back and join me tomorrow. I'll be on around 4:45, ready to fire this thing up again. I wanted to share one last thing with you that I read. Two quick comments that I put in my notes to say at the beginning that I completely forgot because I was drinking whiskey. Number one, I had a moment yesterday where I've been watching the news, I've been watching science, I've been reading as many doctors as I can telling me about that social distancing is working, we're doing the right thing, we're seeing a leveling out of this crazy virus. Out of all that, the best news that I could have got yesterday was seeing my Instacart driver coming up with the last group of groceries and putting them on my front porch. And they brought me a 12-pack of paper towels. Local stock of paper towels is in effect. I think we're okay. We're good. And then I think there was one other thing that I wanted to share with you guys. There was the paper towels. There was the whiskey. Kiev, what's up? In Maryland, welcome. There was one other thing that I wanted to share. It was about the paper towels. And then, I fixed the toilet today. So I took the plunger out. I glued it all together. I put it back together, and I actually fixed the toilet. So I'm feeling pretty good about all this. And the last thing, it wasn't the toilet. My mind just went to the toilet. You know me, it happens. That I read a online poll of 2,000 people who were asked if you could go back to work next Monday, or this could extend longer, which would you choose? What do you think? Are we having fun? Or are we losing our minds and going down the drain? The answer is we're having fun. 63% of respondents of a pretty large survey said they were having a pretty good time during quarantine, and they would be more happy having another week of this than going back to work and normalcy. So I think that's a damn good indication that we're safe as a culture. I'm just going to pull this book off the shelf and try not, and just say I give this book, and I apologize, it's backwards there. But if you need a good read during quarantine to make yourself convinced that we live in the greatest moment in history, the greatest moment in medical history, the greatest moment for longevity, the greatest moment in a in a post-Enlightenment society. Steven Pinker is a professor of cognitive psychology at Harvard, and he has some really beautiful things to say. This book gave me great, I don't want to say faith, great understanding of where we stand scientifically in the world today, knowing that we're in a beautiful place. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Awesome. Cool. No problem. Some of you guys have to work. So Julie, I'm so glad that you could come in and spend a little time with us. And here we go. Also, I wanted to mention tomorrow I'm doing videos all over the place. I'm doing videos for Southern Glazers Wine and Spirits tomorrow for their lockdown university. And I'm also doing a video tomorrow for Winemaker Magazine. And if you're interested in talking, I'm going to be talking about the different kinds of viticulture, and I'm going to be talking about a number of different things tomorrow, home winemaking and small scale backyard viticulture. If you have a vineyard in your backyard or you want a vineyard in your backyard, you might want to go over and make a digital subscription, which is very reasonable, to Winemaker Magazine. And I believe at 11 o'clock tomorrow, I think it's between, maybe it's 2 and, no, it's 11 and noon tomorrow. I'm doing an hour for Winemaker Magazine on Zoom. So if that interests you, check it out. It's winemakermag.com. And it's a great magazine for people who make their own wine and grow their own grapes. All right. Upcoming podcasts. Okay, if you insist, Joseph, let me tell you what we're talking about. I've got the calendar and I'm not afraid to use it. So I think oh, yes. Someone asked me to see the pants yesterday. The pants are spectacular. My legs are absolutely killing the tops of my legs. I did lunges. I did lunges today. I'm going to need a little more wine. Yesterday I said I would show you my pants. I was wearing the similar ones, same company, but they were skull and crossbones, which I like. Okay, so today so I've changed it up a little bit. Originally we were going to do Pinot Blanc tonight, but I want to do the Pinot Blanc when you can buy it. And then we'll do it again after you get it. And then so tomorrow we are talking about basically all the wines that are available for the last day of sale. And we are going to vibe off all of them. So if you've missed a lot of these new day drinkings, when I talk about Sauvignon Blanc, I'll give a minute on Sauvignon Blanc. When I talk about Chardonnay, we'll talk a little about Chardonnay. So tomorrow will be a little bit of review, but I know there'll be some new stuff coming out too, and I'll make sure it's interesting, educational, and performative. Thursday, we'll be doing the 2006, no, we will not. We will be doing, I think we'll be doing the Zin again. So we'll be talking about Zin again on Thursday, and talking a little bit about library wines, how wines age, and when you should drink the wines in your cellar. On Friday, we're going to be talking about food and wine pairing within the context of the wines we sell. So J. Wilkes, predominantly, we may talk a little bit about Ballard Lane, Barrel Burner, and Smashberry. And then Saturday, day drinking. And Saturday, we usually do it in Zoom. Last week was great. Everyone gets to talk. We get to hear Eddie talk about, if you weren't there on Saturday, my buddy Eddie Gray ordered from the wish.com website a case or two of toilet paper, and they sent him calculator rolls. Can you sue them? They would probably say, did you try? I don't know if that's where I would go with that, but I swear that was one of the best good belly laughs I've had when he told that story and showed what they actually sent him. Edgerly, Edge, I hope your golf game, I hope you're able to get out and play some solitary golf in the Denver region of Colorado. I hope Denver is thawing. It should be. And I miss you, buddy. John Edgerly, one of the legendary wine brokers in the greater Denver area, really showed me some amazing places in Denver and got me into some places where I tried some of my current favorite beers in the world. All right, I'm going to check messages one last time. What is the ringtone? Oh, that was communication breakdown. And that is not what rings when my wife calls. That would be London calling, because I love London and I love my wife. Zeppelin, yes, she knows that. Yes, it is. So stay away from people. Anyone else having these weird dreams? Once a night, I have a dream, a little dream, sub-dream of me seeing someone who is clearly sick and having to touch them. Like or knowing they're sick and shaking their hand or patting them on the back and then realizing, and then having that moment when you wake up, did I really just actually touch someone who was sick? So it's definitely playing around in the back of my brain, but oh my gosh, I hate those dreams. Don't want to, I'm not going to touch anyone sick, I promise. All right, Eddie, thank you for the joke. Thanks for hanging out. Thank you to each and every one of you. Really, really appreciate, yeah, strangest dreams ever, COVID-19 dreams. You know, my neighbor came up to me, knocked on the door today, and she was wearing a mask, no gloves, but she had a package that UPS dropped off at the wrong location from Amazon. And she's like, I have this package for you. And it's a neighbor that I've lived here about 4 or 5 years. I've never met her before. Thanked her profusely, tried to be as kind as I could, and asked her to put it down. And she said, oh yeah, well, that makes sense. And by the way, I washed my hands before I came over. And, suddenly, even though I know she was being an amazing neighbor, I knew that I was kind of, I'm not going to grab this from her, but that was social distancing. I did the right thing, right? But I made her feel a little uncomfortable and maybe a little unclean, and that really made passionate, things. So, again, we're in a weird time, but I find that I've never had a moment, how everyone's really nice on Christmas, whether they're believers or not. Generally, Christmas time, everyone gets a little bit nicer. I love the fact that we're sort of in that permanent Christmas. I have yet to see an act of sort of despicable hatred. I have yet to see an act of people road rage or any of these things. I've seen some people do some dumb stuff on the road, and I know that sometimes if I tried to drive with a mask on, my glasses started fogging, so I realized hopefully my car is clean, so I took the mask down off my nose. That's about it for me, though, guys. I hope you guys all had a great time. I'm going to go cook a little dinner for Chanda and I. I'll continue doing all my regular stuff. And love to have you guys back tomorrow night, 5 o'clock, tomorrow day, 5 o'clock, because if it's not day, we're not day drinking. And you know what I say, if you tune in, you're not drinking by yourself. If you tune in, we're day drinking. And remember, always love the one you're with and love the one you're with, because we don't really have an option right now. Be kind, be compassionate, be patient, be all those things that you promised you would be, either during your wedding vows, or be like that to yourself. Reach out to someone who doesn't have anyone to make sure that they're okay. Reach out to your neighborhood, reach out to your friends, reach out to your family, and try to think of someone right now that may not have the support that they deserve, and reach out and show them some love. And make sure when this is all done, day drinking, we're going to have an official meeting and an official field trip, Las Vegas, Nevada. It's official. We'll talk about it. We'll make it happen, and I'll bring the wine. And now we just have to find a place where they'll allow me to bring that much wine. We have great hookups in Vegas, and we also have Will Costello in Vegas, who is a master sommelier under our employ. So he can pull the magic of those crazy 2 letters after his name, and we can have a good time. So thanks for being with the whole time. Thanks for putting up with me after having a little Irish whiskey. It really made the hour go quickly. I hope it was quick for you guys too. So this is the longest day drinking we've ever had, and thanks for sticking around. Cheers, guys. Have a great night, and be kind to each other.